All Earth Environmental Soil Sampling Training Video. Sample reservations, containers, handling, and storage. Samples should only be handled with gloves. Containers need to be non-corrosive. Containers should remain sealed unless actively being used. Equipment. The equipment used in the process of soil sampling are an ice chest, string, wooden stakes, a tape measure, scissors, a small hand spade, a Sharpie, sample labels, sample seals, 6 glass jars with a screw-on lid, a hand auger, reagents. The reagents used for this set of samples is distilled water. Calculations. These are the formulas that you will need to determine number of samples, variance of samples, sample mean. Procedure. The first step in the sampling process is to measure out a 10-foot by 10-foot square, where you want to take your samples and mark each corner with a wooden stake. Next, tie a piece of string around the entire perimeter of the square. The next step is to place a wooden stake every foot along the perimeter so that you know you have 10 stakes on each side of the square. Once all the stakes are in place, take the string and weave it around every stake on each side, creating a 10-foot by 10-foot grid with 100 spaces in the interior. Once you have completed your sampling grid, randomly select 5 of the smaller spaces from which you will take samples from. You can do this using online programs. Once you have all the areas selected, in this time to start taking samples.
To take the sample, remove any covering of the soil with your fingers, and then use the spade to go ahead and remove a thin layer of dirt. Now using the hand auger at a 45-degree angle, press it into the soil about 3 to 4 inches. If necessary, you may step on the auger to help push through the soil. Once in the soil, rotate the auger to loosen the soil and then pull it back to go ahead and remove your core sample.
While one person is taking the soil samples, another should be prepping the sample labels. The sample labels should include the sample number, the name of the person who took the sample, along with the date and time. After you take one of your samples, you will need to make a duplicate sample. This is done by taking 2 samples from the same square, combining and homogenizing them in one jar, and then taking half of that and putting it into a separate jar. Along with taking 4 normal soil samples and a duplicate sample, you must also take a rinsate sample. This is done by first rinsing as much of the soil off the sampling device as possible with your reagent. The sample is then taken by again rinsing the sample device with the reagent, but this time catching the runoff reagent into a sample jar. This sample, along with the duplicate sample, act as control samples. Chain of custody. Once all of your samples have been taken and stored in the ice chest, you have to compose a chain of custody document. This document is used to record every individual or the group that handles their samples. This helps identify the person responsible for the samples if they are lost or contaminated, along with just keeping record of the path that the samples travel. Quality assurance, quality control. There are no specific quality assurance activities which apply to the implementation of these procedures. However, the following QA procedures apply. All data must be documented on the field data sheets or within site logbooks. All instrumentation must be operated in accordance with the operating instructions as supplied by the manufacturer, unless otherwise specified by the work plan. The equipment checkout and calibration activities must occur prior to the sampling/operations and must be documented. Protective clothing, i.e. closed-toed shoes, Long pants, as well as gloves should be worn on site or when handling samples.